So let's do this. Let's go back over into Figma. All right. So today's major focus is around these three core topics, right? We've already broken down just a little bit, but benchmarks. We're going to learn what those are. We're going to learn about what continuous learning really means. We're then going to focus on design, life, and system awareness and just build what that actually means and how we can expand our knowledge base. All right, so I'm going to zoom out and come all the way to the very top. Now, if you haven't been here for the last 7 weeks, we're on week 8 of the Next Level UX training program. We first started on the big 6 in the clarity week. We worked through our top 6 core identifiers around purpose, priorities, opportunities, how we identify what's our identity really look like, and how we want to design our interactions, and then ultimately what success looks like. Then we zoomed in and focused very quickly on our goals. We understood that to build a holistic understanding and a compound effect across our entire life, we really need to have a wider range of the things that we're working on for our goals. We have project goals, career goals, personal goals, and passion goals. And we're going to develop them in parallel tracks. And once we know what those things are, we are going to clearly understand what ebb and flow we want to develop inside of our weeks so that it's fun to actually develop ourselves, create massive contributions in society, work towards something, and not be in a fragmented major gap experience for our life. So then we looked at practice fundamentals of how we could actually practice those three things, because once we have goals, we need to be able to plan and structure and action plan the things that we want to do. So if we have a project in hand and we need to be able to move that project every day, every week, every month, what are the top 5 things that we can do every day, every week, and every month that will help move us forward? And that just takes a little bit of planning, a little bit of structure. But now that we have AI to support us, it's going to be a lot easier. But just because it got easier doesn't make it so you don't do these things. You need to still plan these efforts. You still need to execute these efforts, and it still have to develop an incredible level of craftsmanship. And that takes us into design energy. So after you go through and you understand your practice fundamentals, then we started shifting into how the heck do we build coherent design energy across the things that we do every day, week, and month, right? We want to be able to understand how the work that we do compounds week over week. And if we were to even fast forward with our current age and where we're going to be in like 10 years, in 10 years, I'll be 51, 52 years old. What will I have accomplished? What will I have worked through? What kind of problems or projects or contributions will I have made in how I've designed, how I want to show up? Then, after we have a clear idea of how we're showing up and designing that energy every week, we get to start thinking about how do we do that and improve that for our team and our projects that we work on. So, design clarity is about helping have multiple people, multiple teams, multiple projects move forward in parallel tracks. And you can do that by building out incredible process, incredible systems, and understanding how the people, tools, and systems work through those elements. Now, this is one of the core frameworks that we have inside of Next Level UX. You can literally score yourself inside the product if you go to nextlevelux.me/profile, and you can score yourself. If you already scored yourself, you can do it as many times as you want. But what it will do is help you understand these elements and then work on specific categories that you might score low in. If you score low in an area, it just means that you get to practice that area a little bit more and get better and better at it. And then once you understand those, then we start building the systems around you and building a stronger people circle around you where you understand your family, friends, loved ones, your team, your projects a little bit better. You understand how you're going to operate your plans, build craftsmanship inside of those, understand how you pass knowledge a little bit better between people, how you collaborate better with people, and how you communicate better with people. And then it's going to help you develop yourselves and grow a lot faster. And it's just going to help you kind of move forward in a beautiful way. That's what we're trying to do here. All right. So once you do know that, then we're building out that design clarity. We know what we're building, why we're building it, and how we're moving it forward with other people, how the work gets done, and then we can see the results. And now that I know what I need to do, how am I going to do this across the second half of the year or even just every month or every week? That's where you get into really understanding how you are designing productivity into your life. And designing productivity means you're not getting having your phone control how you respond to people every single minute. You're either in email or you're in Slack or you're in all these different tools, but you get to decide, and the choices you make, the decisions you make are going to either help you be more productive or less productive. You need to be able to rationalize and benchmark how you're performing in your design productivity, and you can design a better way. You can improve that. And it's not about saying there's a perfect way to do it. It's just about being aware of how to improve it and what good and what great is and what excellent is and what is exceptional. We have to know these levels of improvement. Once you do that with design productivity and you understand how you're planning and how you're working through the platform, remember, the better your systems, the better your craftsmanship, the better you can manage your velocity, the better design productivity you're going to have. We did look at different ways to evaluate your tooling, your processes that you take on, and even the craftsmanship. So as you work through each of these topics, there's a lot of things that you can break down and how you're visualizing, but just a simple mapping exercise of writing these things down, writing your thoughts, and going back through the last 7 weeks of training videos if you are still trying to get up to speed so that you understand the system, you understand how these things work together, because we're building compound effects. And now we're on design impact, and I love it. And now we're here, we're ready to get back into the training, and you're caught up. So, why do we even think about design impact? If you like your job and you like being indispensable at your job and you like making a living, you need to be able to make sure that you're contributing to the greater whole of your company or to the greater contribution of who's going to be paying your salary or your retainer or whatever you do as a service. You need to be able to understand if you're doing well. And across every sport, across every industry, across just education in general, there are benchmarks for what good looks like, what great looks like, what excellent looks like. So ask yourself right this second, if you were to take a benchmark across your life, what would be your score from a 1 to 10? 10 being you got life figured out. You are, and a 1 being yeah, just getting started with life and you're all over the place and you just don't know. You could score yourself 1 to 10. That could be as simple as creating your own benchmark. Now you could do that for a lot of different things. Like you could, if you play sports like baseball or football, or if you're a wrestler, or if you're a soccer player, or if you're a graphic designer, a marketer, whatever your role is, there's going to be benchmarks for your role. And you can see who is the very best. Maybe they're 10, and then who is maybe somebody that is just getting started and they have some talent, they have some charisma for how they do the work, but they're not yet trained professional weapon at what they do. So a benchmark helps you understand those things, but you do want to know what good and great looks like. So example of this. So I worked at Facebook or Meta, I worked at LinkedIn, and I worked at lynda.com. These were companies that were building digital technology, digital social networks, and everybody knows what Facebook does and LinkedIn. And just being exposed to the types of systems and infrastructures that exist inside those companies, you start to learn what great companies do at scale when you have tens of thousands of people working towards a specific goal and a mission, and they're rallied behind a CEO or a founder, and they're pushing forward a dream. They're pushing forward a milestone advancement, connecting the world's best professionals and creating a network where people can communicate together. They can offer jobs, they can receive jobs, they can message and ask questions, you can build a network. That's what LinkedIn's all about. Lynda.com was all about building an environment where you can learn anything, and you bring in incredible teachers, incredible instructors, and they teach in a highly effective instructional design way, and you learn those topics. You learn how to do Illustrator, you learn how to do Photoshop, you learn how to build a workflow. I taught 2 seasons of Practical UX Weekly on LinkedIn Learning and taught just basic practical ways on how to do user experience design. Some very practical, simple ways that could apply to any different discipline. And things that you learn in those worlds, in those environments, they're creating the foundations and the benchmarks of what you have experienced for the last 2 decades. When you go to a website and you're like, what should I experience? What should I get? There's a benchmark for what success looks like there. So you might sign up or you don't sign up. You activate or you don't activate. You take in information that a customer tells you to do something and you do it or you don't do it. There are jobs to be done inside of a company and industry. And if those jobs are not getting done, that's probably a failure for the product or experience that you're building. So benchmarks are a point of reference so that you can know if something is working or not working. Now, there's different ways to benchmark things, and the cost, for example, the cost to acquire a customer. What does it cost you to acquire customers? So if you're spending money on an advertisement and you're trying to bring somebody in, what's an example? Okay, how much money do you have to spend in order to acquire one customer? Those are types of benchmarks that you would need to be able to know. Or if you are a soccer player and you're trying to get super fast and run a 100-yard sprint and you want to be able to run it in 13, 14 seconds, how do you make sure that you can run that in, say, under 10 seconds? And you can keep getting better. If you can run a 4-4 40-yard dash and you want to be able to run 100 yards in under 10 seconds or under 12 seconds or 15 seconds or whatever it is, a benchmark is, what did it take you the very first time you ran it? And how are you feeling? And how can you prepare yourself to run better the next time? And then what trainings and exercises could you do to get a little bit better the next time that you go and show up in the experience? So that's an example of getting a benchmark and doing it. So you have to understand when you join a company, you start a project, what does success look like? We talked about that in week 1 for clarity for yourself, but you need to do it for your companies as well. You need to do it for your life, for your designs, for your systems, and you need to know what works and what isn't working. So if you've got an understanding of what benchmarks are, you're in good shape. Now that you understand what benchmarks are and how we're going to use those, there are going to be a lot of examples when you do, if you are in tech or your design and you don't know what those benchmarks are, you can just literally ask what the benchmarks are for how do we know if we're winning or not winning. A benchmark could be you want to be able to do a design in less than a week from start to finish on a certain thing. That's the norm maybe at the company. The company expects you to be able to do that. If you know what those things are going into a project, you're going to be more likely to be able to reframe and reposition what it is that you need to create in that time frame. If you don't know, make today the day that you ask your manager, or if you are the manager, then you can go in and do some recon and discovery with maybe one of your favorite AI tools of your choice and just go deep on learning your benchmarks in your industry and then learning your benchmarks for yourself on what you think could be better and start getting after it and do it.